imagine if there was a company on the planet today with so much power that it can influence almost every single aspect of our lives? A company whose riches are equal to holding more assets than the GDP of almost every single country in the world except two. One company that contributes the most money to the fossil fuels industry and is the single largest investor in the destruction of Earth's remaining forests. What if it turns out you yourself are also responsible for funding this company and allowing it to continue amassing such power and causing such vast destruction? And that almost no matter what you do to try to stop it, there is practically no way for you to avoid giving them your money. The truth is, this company actually exists already. That's right, this isn't a horror fantasy, ladies and gentlemen. This is Blackrock. Let's start with the actual problem. It's vital to get your head around this concept in order to understand who is really pulling the strings in this video game of life. Until you understand how the grand illusion is functioning, you will never appreciate just how much you are a contributing part of the system. So, without further ado, like this video and make sure you subscribe to our channel. Let's get into it. What's the problem with Blackrock? Firstly, you need to understand that this isn't any old company. It's an asset management firm. That means its job is to accumulate and manage anything that makes money. This could be land, property, businesses, you name it. If it makes money, it's on the table. But Blackrock isn't just any old asset management company. It's the biggest one on the planet. This means, as a company, Blackrock is the most powerful entity on Earth today. The amount of power this equates to simply cannot be understated. It should go without saying that in the world of capitalism and business, there is only one main goal of any company. That is to produce as much profit as physically possible for its shareholders. That should say an awful lot about the way the world is shaped, given that Blackrock own a part of almost all business on the planet. To put into perspective just how much of the world's business infrastructure is owned by Blackrock, take a look at this. The names on the screen here are the 7 biggest banks in the US. 1. JP Morgan Chase & Company. 2. Bank of America Corp. 3. Wells Fargo & Company. 4. Citigroup Inc. 5. U.S. Bank Corp. 6. Truist Financial Corporation. 7. PNC Financial Services Group Inc. Now, if you are an American citizen, it is very unlikely you are free from being connected with at least one of these banks. In fact, even many non-Americans will have connections with these banks, where they handle your personal banking, business banking, loans, investments, and/or pension fund. But did you know that all these banks are owned by Blackrock in varying degrees? This is correct. Blackrock is one of the largest shareholders in all of these banks. All of them. That is a great illustration of the illusion of choice in the American banking system. Whichever bank you choose to use, Blackrock is ultimately in control of a portion of your money. There are, of course, some independent banks out there, but their customer bases are relatively low in comparison to the likes of JP Morgan or Wells Fargo, for example. In this sense, America is no different to other parts of the developed world. In fact, Blackrock extends its reach to almost all banking systems globally. Who is one of the single largest shareholders in Deutsche Bank, Commerzbank, and the German postal system? That's right, Blackrock. How about the 4 biggest banks in Australia? You got it, Blackrock. In the UK, Blackrock is the largest shareholder in Lloyds Bank, and all across Europe, there is barely any country that Blackrock doesn't own shares in, and at least one bank or financial institution. Okay, so that's the banking sector, but does Blackrock have control in any other aspects of your life? Well, what about pension funds? Do you have one of those? Most likely you do. If you've ever had a job before, your employer would likely have provided one. Other terms for pension funds are 401ks or superannuations. Pension funds take your money and invest it for you to help it grow for when it's time for you to retire. These funds are managed by professionals who make the investment decisions on your behalf, meaning you can't necessarily affect where your money goes. In reality, it is very likely that the majority of this money is invested with Blackrock or in a fund that is heavily connected to Blackrock. This is similar to the insurance industry. Some of the largest insurance firms around the world, like for example AIG and Allianz, are owned partly by Blackrock. If not owned directly by Blackrock, they usually invest in Blackrock funds. This is because Blackrock funds are so prolific and have consistently earned trust within markets. In the US, for example, it is extremely common for insurance companies to hold investments with Blackrock more than any other company. But if you thought all this was crazy, wait until you hear what's been happening in real estate. Remember the game Monopoly? It's been reported that Blackrock is aggressively buying up American property, paying up to 50% higher than average prices on single-family homes. This is absurd. Can you imagine a world where normal citizens can no longer own property because huge asset management conglomerates like BlackRock already own it all? The world's population would be forced to rent and would never own their own homes. This is significant as when you are forced to rent, you are never fully in control of your own life. The landlord is always able to impose a certain level of control over you, which could be seen as affecting your freedom. Any property that is still available to purchase becomes hugely inflated in price and virtually unattainable for the average person. The media tells you that the real reason for the housing crisis has nothing to do with huge firms like BlackRock and Goldman Sachs flooding the market with money. But guess what? Most of the media is also owned by BlackRock in some way. That's right, take Vox for example. Vox itself is sponsored by Goldman Sachs and is indirectly owned by BlackRock through its parent company, Comcast. So, who can you trust? The media is likely to be very biased if it is all owned by the same people. To make matters even more complicated, BlackRock can be seen not just to own companies directly, but to own indirectly through association. A great example of this is Goldman Sachs, the investment bank. In fact, as one of the largest shareholders in Goldman Sachs, BlackRock owns a lot more than what appears on paper. BlackRock's control saturates the entire global markets. This is a firm that creeps up on you in the night like a shifty old man in the woods. And if that wasn't crazy, wait till I explain circular ownership to you. It doesn't get crazier than this. Imagine having two separate companies that both own a part of one another, a bit like Siamese twins. For example, take another investment bank conglomerate like JP Morgan. This is an entity that is also owned partly by BlackRock. Funny that. But it doesn't end there. JP Morgan also owns part of BlackRock. This means both companies own a part of each other, but also, indirectly, they each own a part of themselves. What on earth? You might find that confusing, but you're not the only one. In fact, this might be the exact point of the structure, to be as confusing as possible. We often find this in corporate structure, where the element of complexity is designed to hide from all sorts of rules, including, for example, tax laws. This kind of circular ownership creates enormous conflicts of interest and facilitates corporations in building shadow monopolies through a deliberate lack of transparency. Isn't that just bonkers? You might argue that the world is so diverse and mixed up that it really is impossible for BlackRock to have so much control. But here's a great example. Take Coca-Cola and PepsiCo. Everyone knows these two are sworn competitors, right? But did you know that BlackRock is one of the largest shareholders in both companies? Holy smokes, that is insane. The same is true in the mainstream media. No matter what side of the political spectrum you fall on, BlackRock owns portions of Fox News, the New York Times, CNN, the ABC, NBC, the New York Post, Sky News, The Sun, and many, many more. Perhaps that's why the news has started to feel a bit samey of late. Seriously, it's starting to feel like BlackRock's control over the world is like a giant squid or octopus that traps an innocent ship at sea and slowly wraps its tentacles around the boat until completely crushing its prey. But surely social media is free from this grip, right? Wrong. BlackRock is known to be one of the biggest shareholders in Twitter, Facebookery, and by extension, WhatsApp and Instagrammable. I think by now you're starting to get the picture. Indeed, it seems that BlackRock has a huge finger in almost every single pie, and there doesn't seem to be an industry exempt from their management and control. It was recently reported that BlackRock owns $9 trillion worth of assets. That is $9 trillion with a capital T. It's simply impossible to wrap your mind around it. That figure is more than the GDP of every single country on the planet except for two, China and the US. Just let that sink in. This company is like the literal Death Star, whizzing around the galaxy and enslaving everything within it. BlackRock is like a rich young girl on a shopping spree in a shoe shop. There is simply nothing it won't buy. If the idea of any of this scares you, maybe that's a good thing. There is one thing you all need to do right now to prepare yourselves. Make sure you stop what you're doing, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for some more amazing insight into how money really works. But seriously, did you know the only reason BlackRock gets away with this much power is because you allow it to? If you didn't, maybe you should subscribe to this channel. And if you did already know that, subscribe to our channel anyway, right now. The thing is, at the end of the day, it's your money that flows through the banks, pension funds, and investment companies that allows BlackRock to wield so much power like the great hammer of Thor. Without us, they wouldn't have the financial strength to invest in almost every single industry and shape the world according to their preference. But there is something that we could do about this. Next time you deposit your money in the bank, make sure you are happy with how this money is being used and who owns that specific bank. Do a bit of research, and if you don't like what you find, take your money out of that bank right away and invest it into a local bank or credit union. These tend to be much more independent. Today, there are many alternatives to the traditional banking system that can help you get off-grid ASAP. Check out online digital banks with prepayment cards, etc. Just make sure their ownership is free from the usual suspects. Ultimately, it is you who needs to take responsibility and ensure your money is voting for a world you want to see exist. This is how you can make significant positive change, like a man who used to be fast fashion but now only buys sustainable clothing from online stores such as clothes.com. Check them out, these guys truly have some great sustainable fashion on offer. Whether it's winter or summer where you are, these wardrobe essentials look cool, but most importantly, don't involve destroying the planet. We are the silent majority in this world. Any small change you can make can have a huge impact. If you have made it this far, give yourself a reward and subscribe to this channel immediately. The #1 channel on finance and money on the internet today. Try not to let the negativity get you down and join our growing audience to become better educated on how to get ahead in this video game of life. And if you know any better ways to have a positive effect in the world, make sure you leave a comment to share it with us. That's it for now. See you in the next video.